Most people reach a point where they look back and think, if I'd just started earlier, everything would look different right now. For a lot of people, that realization comes a little too late, and it's usually because they never had a simple plan to follow. In this video, I'll walk you and Josh through a 10-year early retirement plan built to keep you out of that regret zone. I will show you why progress feels slow in the beginning, how to figure out your freedom number, what each year of the plan looks like, and the 3 steps that speed everything up. I will show you a real-life portfolio that grows slowly at first and then much faster over time. And at the end, I'll show you how this portfolio could reach $500,000 in the next 10 years, paying over $2,800 a month in dividend income. Also, a quick bonus tip at the end if you want a higher monthly income. But before any of that makes sense, you need to understand the trap almost everyone falls into without realizing it, because it's the thing that makes people quit long before the good part even begins. Most people don't fail at early retirement because the math is impossible. They fail because the beginning feels slow, sometimes painfully slow, and it convinces them that nothing meaningful is happening. For example, investing $200 a month for a full year. You've contributed $2,400, but your account might only show $2,600 or $2,700. That extra $200 or $300 feels insignificant, and that tiny improvement is often enough to make people think the entire effort isn't worth continuing. This is the invisible trap. It looks unproductive, and when progress looks unproductive, consistency becomes hard. But what you're seeing on the surface isn't the full picture. The early stage isn't failure, it's the groundwork that everything else depends on. A clear financial way to understand this is by looking at how real portfolio growth unfolds. In the first couple of years, almost all progress comes from your contributions, not from investment returns. You're building the principle that future compounding will multiply. A portfolio moving from $2,400 to $2,700 isn't supposed to be impressive, it's supposed to be foundational. Without that slow initial base, the later jumps, sometimes tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, never happen. This early stagnation is what I call the plateau curve. You're doing the right things, but the results lag behind. And this is exactly where most people quit, right before the curve bends upward and compounding finally becomes noticeable. Once you see the plateau curve for what it really is, your expectations shift, and the whole idea of retirement starts to look different. Most people think retirement is something tied to age, benefits, or a government rule, but the real definition is much simpler. You're retired the moment your passive income consistently covers a meaningful portion of your monthly costs. That's it. You don't need millions. You don't need to stop working entirely. You just need enough financial support that your job is no longer the only thing keeping your life afloat. A clear way to measure this is through freedom units. Instead of asking, how big is my investment account? Ask, how much of my lifestyle is already paid for by my money? If your monthly expenses are $3,000 and your portfolio generates $300 a month, you're already 10% financially free. That's not a small milestone. That's the equivalent of buying back half a workday every single week for the rest of your life. At 20% freedom, a full workday each week is paid for. At 40%, your job becomes dramatically less stressful because you're no longer fully dependent on it. And at 60 to 70%, work becomes optional long before you ever reach traditional retirement numbers. The goal isn't to stop working for good, it's to get your time back. Retirement is just the moment your money starts sharing the load, and once you see it that way, measuring your progress becomes a lot more straightforward. A lot of people hear they need a huge retirement number, usually something in the 7-figure range, and they shut down immediately. It feels impossible. But that big number is only your full financial independence number. It's not where you start, and it's definitely not what you need to feel relief or freedom right now. The simplest way to understand both is through the 25x rule. Here's how it works. Take your yearly expenses and multiply them by 25. That gives you the amount of invested money that can support your lifestyle indefinitely. The math is based on the idea that you can safely withdraw about 4% of your investments each year without running out of money. So if your expenses are $3,000 a month, that's $36,000 a year, and your full financial independence number becomes 36,000 times 25 equals $900,000. But here's the part most people miss. You don't need $900,000 to feel free. You only need your personal freedom number, the amount your investments already cover right now. If your portfolio pays you $300 a month, that's 10% freedom. If it pays $600 a month, that's 20% freedom, which is basically one entire workday every week that your money is covering for you. These levels show up years before you ever reach full financial independence. Once these two numbers make sense, early retirement stops feeling like a huge, intimidating finish line and starts looking more like a path you can move along week by week, which is exactly where the 10-year roadmap begins. Reaching the point where work becomes optional in 10 years isn't about finding the perfect investment or timing the market. It's about understanding how progress naturally unfolds over time. The first stage is the planting years, roughly years 1 through 3. This is where you build the foundation. You raise your income, keep lifestyle creep under control, and get consistent with your investing. It feels slow because the early years are slow, but this is the structure every later milestone depends on. Then come the momentum years, years 4 through 7. Your income is usually higher, your savings rate improves, and compounding finally starts to show itself. Your contributions and your returns begin working together instead of separately. You start feeling traction here, even if the numbers still don't look dramatic yet. The final stage is the freedom curve, years 8 through 10. By this point, your contributions sit on top of a much stronger base, and growth begins to accelerate. Gains get bigger, progress speeds up, and the whole curve starts bending upward. This is the phase where early retirement starts feeling real. There's one detail most people overlook though, the opportunity gap. Delaying your start by just 2 or 3 years can push your entire timeline back by 5 or more. With compounding, lost time is far more expensive than small contributions, which is why starting early matters so much. Looking at these 3 stages clearly gives you a realistic map. You know what each phase should feel like, why slow progress in the beginning is normal, and how each year moves you closer to the point where work becomes a choice instead of an obligation. To move through those phases faster, you only need to focus on 3 levers. Early retirement doesn't come from extreme budgeting or guessing your way through investing. It comes from understanding and consistently applying the 3 levers that control your timeline: saving, earning, and investing. They work together, and even small improvements in each one can speed up your timeline more than you'd expect. The first lever is saving, which is simply the gap between your income and your expenses. If you earn $4,000 and spend $3,200, the remaining $800 is the fuel you can invest. You don't need to eliminate everything enjoyable. You just need a reliable gap that grows over time. Think of each saved dollar as a tool. Money you spend disappears, but money you invest keeps working every month without needing your time or energy. The second lever is earning, and this is the lever most people underestimate. You can only reduce expenses to a point, but your earning power can rise for years. Increasing your income by even $300 to $700 a month through skills, promotions, or a small side project can speed up your timeline far more than cutting small expenses. This is where income ceilings and income floors matter. Your income ceiling is the most your job or skill set can reasonably pay. Your income floor is how much of your lifestyle is covered by passive income. Early retirement happens when your floor rises enough to meet your living costs. If your job pays $4,000, but your investments generate $1,200, your floor already covers 30% of your life, making work far less stressful. The third lever is investing, which is the multiplier that ties everything together. In the early years, most growth comes from your contributions, but once your portfolio grows, compounding begins, accelerating your progress. A larger base makes every percentage gain more meaningful, and investing isn't about timing the market, it's about owning assets that grow and pay income over time. When these 3 levers move together, saving creates your gap, earning expands it, and investing multiplies it, you create a system that can turn a 30-year path into roughly a decade. In a couple of minutes, I will show you the stocks I have selected for this portfolio, and at the end, I'll show you how this portfolio could reach $500,000 in the next 10 years, paying over $2,800 a month in dividend income. Also, a quick bonus tip at the end if you want a higher monthly income. Alright, let's talk about where the actual money goes. Your early retirement portfolio is built on 3 layers that each play a different role. The first is the growth layer. These are assets that increase in value over time, like broad ETFs, strong companies, and index funds. This is what builds most of your wealth over the long run. The second layer is the income layer. These are your dividend-paying companies, REITs, or anything that puts cash in your pocket. The third is the safety layer. This includes cash reserves or low volatility assets. It doesn't make you rich, but it protects you during market drops and keeps you from selling growth assets at the worst possible time. And with the structure in place, the next step is choosing which companies are strong enough to earn a spot in this portfolio. When you're building a portfolio for early retirement, the goal is simple. Choose companies that keep growing, keep paying, and keep standing strong no matter what the market is doing. A clear set of criteria helps you do that without guessing or getting emotional about every price move. The first thing to look for is business consistency. You want companies with steady demand, predictable earnings, and a long track record of staying relevant. The second criteria is dividend health. A solid yield is great, but the real signal is dividend growth. When a company raises its dividend year after year, it usually means strong cash flow, disciplined leadership, and a business model that can withstand economic cycles. The third criterion is financial strength. Low debt, healthy profit margins, and positive free cash flow help companies stay stable during downturns. Strong balance sheets keep dividends intact and allow businesses to keep expanding while weaker competitors fall behind. You also want long-term appreciation potential. You're not just collecting income, you're building wealth. Companies with competitive advantages, well-known brands, or unique positions in their industry tend to outperform over long stretches of time. And finally, keep it simple. You don't need a huge list of stocks or complicated strategies. You want businesses you actually understand, companies with clear products, clear revenue, and clear histories of doing what they say they'll do. Once you apply those criteria, only a handful of companies really stand out. Each one plays a different role, and together they create a portfolio built for reliable income, steady growth, and long-term compounding. The backbone of the portfolio is the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. It gives you a 3.8% dividend yield, a 10-year dividend growth rate of 10.43%, and about 7.79% annual share price appreciation. SCHD brings instant diversification and a history of disciplined, dependable companies, so it becomes the steady anchor of the whole strategy. Next is CubeSmart, which leans more toward income. It offers a 5.68% dividend yield, a 12.51% dividend growth rate, and a 2.73% annual appreciation. Self-storage tends to stay strong in good and bad economies, so CubeSmart adds reliable cash flow to the income layer. Then there's the Federal Agricultural Mortgage Corporation. This is one of the portfolio's big growth engines. It pays a 3.66% dividend yield, has maintained a huge 25.27% dividend growth rate, and delivers 18.52% annual price appreciation. Morgan Stanley adds stability from a global financial powerhouse. With a 2.44% dividend yield, a 21.48% dividend growth rate, and 17.01% annual appreciation, it strengthens both the dividend growth side and the long-term appreciation side of the portfolio. And finally, Nexstar Media Group brings a mix of strong cash flow and solid price performance. It offers a 4.08% dividend yield, a standout 25.62% dividend growth rate, and 12.01% annual appreciation. The next step is to calculate the portfolio dividend yield so you can see what this group of stocks is paying you on average as a whole, not just one by one. I will keep it very simple and use the basic average method. Start by listing the dividend yield for each stock in the portfolio. In this case, SCHD has a dividend yield of 3.8%, CubeSmart is at 5.68%, Federal Agricultural Mortgage Corporation is at 3.66%, Morgan Stanley is 2.44%, and Nexstar Media Group is 4.08%. Think of these like 5 separate income percentages. The next step is to add them all together. So you take 3.8 plus 5.68 plus 3.66 plus 2.44 plus 4.08. When you add these up, you get a total of 19.66. That number represents the combined yield of all 5 positions before averaging. Now you divide that total by the number of stocks in the portfolio. Since there are 5 stocks, you take 19.66 and divide it by 5. That gives you 3.932. When you round that to 2 decimal places, your portfolio's average dividend yield becomes 3.93%. That's where the 3.93% portfolio dividend yield comes from. It is simply the average of the individual yields. You can use this same simple average method for the other portfolio metrics too. If you do it for the dividend growth, you get a portfolio dividend growth rate of 19.06%. And if you do it for annual share price appreciation, you get a portfolio average of about 11.61%. Now, let's look at what these numbers actually create over time. Let's start with the beginning. Let's say Josh starts with a $10,000 upfront investment and adds $60 a day. Based on portfolio metrics and this investment, the portfolio is projected to be valued at roughly $33,000 by the end of year 1. It will already be producing about $400 in dividends. It's a small number, but it will be the early signal that the system is working and the foundation is in place. By year 5, your contributions, the reinvested dividends, and the natural growth of the portfolio will begin stacking together. At this point, the portfolio is expected to reach around $173,000 and generate roughly $7,000 a year in passive income. This is where the compounding curve will begin to bend. By year 10, the portfolio is projected to grow to about $557,000 and pay close to $34,000 a year in dividends, which comes out to over $2,800 every month. For many people, that alone will cover a major portion of their living costs. But depending on your lifestyle, your goals, or the city you live in, you might be wondering what happens if $2,800 a month still isn't quite enough. That's the part most people overlook. Hitting the 10-year mark doesn't mean the portfolio stops growing. It's actually the point where compounding begins working even harder for you. And if you let the system keep running, the next few years are projected to look very different. By year 11, the portfolio is expected to reach around $689,000 and generate roughly $45,000 a year in dividends. By year 13, it's projected to cross the $1 million mark and pay about $79,000 a year. And by year 15, the portfolio is expected to grow to roughly $1.61 million, paying around $140,000 annually. That's over $11,600 per month in passive income, more than enough to cover every aspect of your life. Want to know how much investment in SCHD you'd need for $5,000 a month? Click the video on screen to find out.